Businesses worry easing restrictions could prolong recovery. Business people and economists have expressed concerns about the government's decision to ease travel restrictions, saying the policy could backfire and prolong the economic recovery from the coronavirus downturn. Indonesia Chamber of Commerce and Industry Deputy Chairwoman Shinta Kamdani told the Jakarta Post that easing restrictions might not have the desired effect on the country's economy because the virus could continue to spread. Transportation operators told the Post they did not expect any immediate uptick in economic activities from the government's new travel policy as people still considered it risky to travel during a pandemic. Allowing people to move freely could heighten the risk of further contagion and even increase fatality rates. This will prevent market confidence in Indonesia from recovering as easily and will make it more difficult to allow the economy to run as usual, Shinta said. The National COVID-19 Task Force issued a circular letter on May 6 exempting state officials, private sector workers and state-owned enterprise employees from the government's ban on travel to and from various red zones. The move came as Indonesia saw its highest daily increases in COVID-19 cases on May 5 and May 9 despite the task force's claim that new cases have rapidly slowed and flattened on April 27. President Joko Widodo has targeted a flattening of COVID-19 cases in May, expecting transmission to be moderate in June and to be low in July. We understand that loosening mobility restrictions could bode well for the economy in general, but we think the positive impact of this policy is limited as demand remains low, Shinta said. Bus operator Lorena Transport Managing Director DWI Ryanto Serbakti said the change in policy would have little effect on his business because people were still hesitant to travel. This policy will not have any significant impact on transportation operators. I do not think this policy is right because it will only prolong the pandemic, DWI said. Demand for travel will not increase because of eased travel restrictions. This will only lead to a bigger risk of the pandemic being prolonged. Lorena Transport and Karina Transport will not yet resume the operation of their intercity and inter-province services. The bus operator is currently operating 10% of its normal Greater Jakarta services with health protocols that include disinfection before and after trips, compulsory mask wearing, and filling only half of the bus's seating capacity. The government issued Transportation Ministerial Regulation No. 25/2020 on April 23 to ban the Idul Fitri exodus mudik to and from COVID-19 red zones areas under large-scale social restrictions and agglomeration areas from April 24 to May 31. Travel for essential needs was exempted. Center of Reform on Economics economist Muhammad Faisal urged the government to be consistent and firm with its own regulations instead of backtracking by allowing for exemptions. For the time being, he said the government needed to focus on containing the spread of COVID-19 rather than reopening the economy. Faisal said people who were key to the resumption of the economy were still concerned about COVID-19 as the number of confirmed cases was still on the rise domestically and globally. They had therefore restricted their spending and movement, he added. The government is rushing to restart the economy when they know very well that it will take some time to recover it, just like what they had planned in the government regulation in lieu of law, Perpu, he said. The Perpu allows the government to enact economic recovery measures until 2021. The recovery process will be much faster if the government remains consistent about its own regulations, added Faisal. Fitch Solutions wrote in a research note that the Indonesian government's response to COVID-19 had been slow, unclear and fractured, thereby prolonging both public health and economic difficulties. Fitch Solutions researchers expect Indonesia's economy to contract 1.3% this year, lower than the government's worst-case scenario of 0.4% contraction. Indonesia's annual GDP growth slowed more than expected to 2.97% in the first quarter of this year, the weakest in 19 years and lower than the government's projection of over 4% growth. We have factored in a slow recovery in Indonesia as the country is still in the early stages of combating the virus and may need to remain under lockdown for a prolonged period, Fitch Solutions said in a research note. The Indonesia National Air Carrier Association (INACA) said the travel exemptions had prompted several flights to reopen. The association announced, however, that airlines were still complying to the mudik ban stipulated in the Transportation Ministerial Regulation. After the COVID-19 task force issued a detailed letter on exemptions for travel, there were only a few routes that were opened and not all flights are back for operations, said INACA chairman Denan Prawaratmaja. Flag carrier Garuda Indonesia and its subsidiary, low-cost carrier CityLink Indonesia, have reopened flights previously prohibited in the transportation regulation to serve exempted travelers. We require passengers to provide information regarding the COVID-19 status, said Garuda Indonesia President Director Irfan Setioputra. Passengers are required to provide supporting documents such as a letter of duty or hospital referral letter, and flights will only fill 50% of their seating capacity in compliance with the regulation, he added.